are struggling a half. Don't I know it? Welcome to today's video. This video we are going to be discussing some pretty heavy topics. I am a communications major, which means I have not quite got my degree yet, but it is a topic that I am learning about. I am very interested in. This video we're going to be discussing, I just looked right into the light. Oh my god. Oh my god. In this video, I'll be going over the complaint that was recently filed by Blake Lively surrounding the It Ends With Us drama. I'm not normally one to talk about drama, but we have left drama territory. We have now entered into some legal territory. More specifically in this video, I want to be diving into Baldoni's team in particular, because this is what this complaint is about and how his PR team was able to manipulate us. So let's start with the background. So the movie itself is a bit of old news, as it did come out a few months ago. It's an okay movie. It's kind of like people are like, yeah, it's okay, and you know, it's not the greatest thing ever, but it's also not like the worst thing ever. It's like middle road. It's based off of a Colleen Hoover book. Fun fact, Colleen Hoover has her own lore and problematic past. So the fact that this movie was made to begin with, already you're kind of... I have never read a Colleen Hoover book because that's not my genre, but I also know about Colleen Hoover. Like, she's pretty well known around the bookverse that she is not the greatest person around. Okay, we'll put it that way. I'm not going to get into her background and the whole questionable things that gone on there, or the fact that her writing in itself is very problematic. I think even the It Ends With Us book, a lot of people had some problems with it. I don't know exactly what, because again, not my genre, but I'm just putting that out there. For the movie, it stars Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni as the leads and centers around their relationship and depicts the cycle of abuse and DV. Cannot say that out loud because I think YouTube will come for my ass. So it is based on a book, like I said, with a lot of heavy themes, so it should in turn take those topics very seriously and handle them with care. However, interesting. However, due to the press tour and promotional material of the movie before its theatrical release, many were critical of the way that this movie was propped up to be like this romance girls' night out type movie. In my world, and I'm sure other people's worlds, we like to call that false advertisement, because it's not exactly what the movie's about, or at least that's not the most important aspects of the movie. Many creators and audiences were obviously upset with this. At the core of this movie and the book, it was about DV and the cycles of abuse. So when you're promoting it this way, there's going to be a lot of anger and frustration, and a lot of that anger and frustration was directed at the loudest voice. Sorry, Blake Lively, but you know, main actress. A lot of the hate was directed towards her. It also didn't help that she was trying to promote her own brand, right? I think she had a hair care product that is still, you can still buy it in Target, and she was also trying to sell an alcoholic business, which not great when you're tying it into a movie about abuse. So all of this combined kind of gave the impression that she either didn't understand the messaging of the movie, or she just didn't care and she just wanted a quick paycheck. It also didn't help when old and relatively newer interviews were released of her, how do I put this lightly? She was kind of being a bitch. Like, she didn't have the most friendliest of tones. She definitely gave off this impression of mean girl. And I think she still kind of does to a certain degree. She's definitely got that Hollywood elitism that only certain A-list actors have, where they're so disconnected from reality. You know what I mean? Like, there's that disconnect from the everyday normal person. And in contrast, you had Baldoni, which is the other lead, starring opposite of Blake Lively, where he spoke out about the movie for what it truly was, which was a movie about the cycles of abuse, escaping those cycles and overcoming trauma. It didn't really matter when the news came out that all of his co-stars unfollowed him on social media. It didn't matter that he was doing the press tour by himself while all the other casts were doing it together. What mattered was that he said the right things, and he promoted this movie for what it truly was, a survivor's story, and people appreciated that. The only real eyebrow raise that some people had was whenever he hired a crisis management team in the midst of all this, where there's a lot of, you know, speculation going around, like what the hell's going on? Why is he separate from the cast? But also, he's the only one who's doing anything right. That was really the only question that people had, but a lot of people were able to kind of explain it away, and even I was to a certain degree, right? You could bring up the question, why hire a crisis PR team if you're not guilty of anything? And you do have to realize that he is a Hollywood actor. He is a public figure. Even if he didn't do anything like extremely guilty, like even if he just had like a spat with his friends or whatever, and they're doing things separate because they can't get along, or like maybe they didn't agree with how they wanted to promote the film and that's why there's two separate camps, you still need to hire some sort of public relations team to make you look good. Like, it's not uncommon in the world of Hollywood. So I think a lot of people were able to explain that away. And it's no surprise that because of all of this, that most people in the media and the public chose his side. However, the truth of the whole matter is maybe not as black and white as we all thought it was. Recent developments. Merry Christmas, everybody. Blake Lively has just filed a complaint against Justin Baldoni, accusing him of some, well, not just him, but also like his PR team, of some pretty heinous things, in my opinion. This situation that we're going to look into is a perfect example of how PR and crisis management teams work behind the scenes to manipulate perception. Before I go over the legal complaint, I'll start off by saying this, that many things can be true at the same time. People can say or do bad things, yet still have good intentions. And the opposite of that is true as well. So there's a lot of nuance that we need to consider when we're diving into this complaint and this entire story. We need to understand that there is no such thing as a perfect victim, that these are two very clearly distinct sides and each side is going to have a bias. The truth is a lot more messier than what we may think. This complaint was filed by Blake Lively against Wayfarer Studios LLC, which is the production company behind the movie. Justin Baldoni, who is the main star opposite of Blake Lively, he's also the director and he is also the co-founder of Wayfarer Studios. Then we have Jamie Heath, who is the CEO of Wayfarer Studios. In this complaint, you'll see Baldoni and Heath pretty much tied together a lot with a lot of these complaints because they're in these leadership roles at Wayfarer Studios. And then we have Melissa Nathan, who is the hired PR manager for Baldoni. She's the one who came in a little bit later into the picture during this press tour to help protect Baldoni's image. And then we have Jennifer Abel, who is Baldoni's publicist. So Nathan and Abel are two names that are also going to be tied closely together throughout this complaint because a lot of the proof in the pudding is from text convos between the two of them. So I have read through the entire complaint and I suggest that you guys do the same. I will link down below the New York Times article that released it. It is a hefty 80 pages, so I cannot go over every single freaking page in that thing, but I will be, you know, pulling out the most important aspects of this. Obviously, this was written by Blake Lively's team. It is written in a certain bias towards her favor, obviously, but there's certain things in here where it's like, okay, well, that's irrefutable proof that, you know, something happened. Something definitely happened at the very least. This isn't just hearsay. It's not just he said, she said in this complaint. There's a lot, okay, that I'll be going over here. I'll break this into two different parts with the complaint. We'll have the during production and the during the press tour because there are two like main timelines that are important to this. We'll start with what happened during production. And I'm going to be following like a loose timeline because the complaint doesn't give an exact timeline. So I'm trying to kind of piece things together as I go along with what they're giving me. Again, this is all based off of what is in this legal complaint. I don't know, to protect myself, do I need to say that all of this is alleged? Again, this is all based off of a legal complaint filed by Blake Lively. So if anything, come for her, not for me. During production, on the set, Lively and cast members experienced unprofessional, unsafe, and sexually pervasive behavior from both Baldoni and Heath, who, keep in mind, were in powerful positions. So there are many examples of this behavior that she provides throughout this. I'll only provide a couple main examples, and then you'll also see a document that I'll show a little bit later where you can kind of read through it. You can pause and read for yourself of like all the examples of like weird shit that happened on scene between Baldoni and Lively specifically, but also some other cast members. During a scene where Lively's character is giving birth, Baldoni and Heath both pressured Lively to go full nude for the shot, despite no mention of nudity for the scene in the script, her contract, or in previous creative discussions. Women give birth naked and that his wife had ripped her clothes off during labor. I don't know if that's true because I've never given pregnant. I've never given birth before in my life, but I'm pretty sure that's not true. She compromised and just did it from the waist down. So there's like an instance of, I think that can be clarified as sexual harassment. I wanted to throw this one in here because I thought it's weird. Baldoni engaged in other behaviors that were shocking and emotionally distressing. For example, he claimed he could speak to the dead, and on several occasions told her that he had spoken to her dead father. Now, this one is kind of like, what the fuck? It kind of comes out of nowhere. Another example, weight shaming. At the time, many criticized Lively for claiming that Baldoni had weight shamed her when he asked her personal trainer how much she weighed, stating that he was worried about his back issues. The weight shaming is something that was brought up at the time during the press tour, and a lot of people shamed Blake Lively for because it seemed ridiculous. But throughout the document, you see that there are other cases of him weight shaming her. When Miss Lively caught strep throat, Mr. Baldoni offered as a gift to connect her with an expert he had on retainer to help her with probiotics and to combat the sickness. But when Miss Lively filled out the privacy forms, she saw that the expert was not what Mr. Baldoni had represented to her, but was instead a weight loss specialist. Talking about the instance of Baldoni with the trainer, you'll see on page 20, there is a footnote. In later text messages sent to his team, Mr. Baldoni referred to Miss Lively's trainer as a damn spy and sought to plant stories to portray his concerns as being motivated by his lower back pain. So I thought that was interesting. Just another little throwing that in there, food for thought. Those are just some examples, but there had been many instances and examples of unprofessional behavior from both Baldoni and Heath, to the point where complaints were made at the time. Not only were these complaints from Lively, but it was also from others. And I will be going into further proof of text messages between Baldoni's PR manager and his publicist that kind of confirm the fact that there are other complaints other than just from Lively. I know a lot of, the public perception, especially now, even when this has come out, is that like, it's just Lively against Baldoni, but it's not just Lively. There's also proof of others coming forward to complain about sexual harassment on the set of It Ends With Us. Wayfarer Productions definitely seemed to be a bit messy when it came to informing their employees about the practices and policies involving HR and filing complaints. Not that it really mattered because, again, Baldoni and Heath are both in leadership positions. Even when they tried to file complaints, it was like, well, they still didn't do anything about it. Wayfarer failed to investigate those reports or to otherwise institute protections for the cast. These instances aren't isolated, they're not one-offs, and they're also witnessed by other people. This movie's production was kind of a little jumbled due to the WGA strikes that happened around the same time, so production had to stop. Before production could start again, Lively created a list of rules that all parties had to agree on. At some point, they had to have a meeting between Jamie, Heath, Justin Baldoni, Blake Lively, and some other people. I think there was a Sony representative and she had her husband with her. So they went over some rules that they needed to have in place in order to continue production. 1, no showing nude videos or images of women, including producer's wife, to Blake Lively and or her employees, nor a mention of Baldoni's or Heath's previous pornography addiction or Blake Lively's lack of pornography consumption to Blake Lively or to other crew members. Number 4, nor mention to Blake Lively or her employees of personal times that physical consent was not given in sexual acts as either the abuser or the abused. 5, no more descriptions of their own genitalia to Blake Lively. Oof. Number 8, my personal favorite, no more mention by Mr. Baldoni of him speaking to Blake Lively's dead father. Number 9, no more pressing by Mr. Baldoni for Blake Lively to disclose her religious beliefs or unsolicited sharing of his, which he, if you've seen interviews of him before, he is very open about his religion. So there is 30 of these. I'm not going to go through all of them. I'll put them on screen so you can pause and read. But yeah, there's a lot of sexual content here. There's just a lot of harassment, a lot of abuse of power, a lot of just weird crap that in a normal workplace would definitely get you probably fired. Now, keep in mind, again, this was presented during a meeting after the initial production had shut down. So these things were brought up. They were told to stop doing it, and yet they continued to do it. So in order to continue to film, these list of complaints had to be agreed upon. So Exhibit A shows the protections for return to production, and this is the more formal document. It shows how bad things had gotten on set. And Exhibit B shows another signed document that showcases Lively's terms and conditions involving intimacy, depictions of sex, physical touch, etc. You can pause to look at those. Very interesting reads. Again, these are signed documents from both parties. Pretty damn telling, in my opinion. Why would these documents need to exist if absolutely nothing happened on set? So now we're gonna go ahead and get into the press tour. Sony, our favorite production company of all times, had issued a marketing plan for the entire cast to follow when on press tour. Exhibit C shows another document that was sent out by Sony representatives of what the cast and crew had to follow in order to promote this movie. So Sony really wanted the cast to focus on empowerment and resilience and to avoid heavy topics because those were not as marketable. Exhibit C doesn't strictly say how to market or like the words that you have to use. It's just a basic guideline, a promotional plan that Sony gave to the entire cast and crew. Blake Lively does go on to say that she was contractually obligated to follow this, but there's no like actual proof within this complaint. But I will say this is kind of where we see a little bit of bias in here. It doesn't say that she can't mention domestic violence or that she had to say the words that she said during the press tour. You know, if Baldoni was allowed to go off script, I'm pretty sure somebody as high up in Hollywood as Blake Lively probably could have pulled some strings once she started seeing negative feedback at the very beginning and could have been like, listen, if he's going off script, then I'm gonna start going off script too. Like, I'm sure she could have pushed back more if she wanted to. It's just kind of weird that Baldoni was allowed to do it, but she wasn't. Like, when he be contractually obligated same way as she is with Sony, and if he was able to get out of these contractual obligations, wouldn't she be able to? I don't know. Those are just questions. You know, can't defend her exactly on this one because she did say some whack-ass things during the press tour and during interviews, so it's not 100% an excuse on her part, even though it's trying to be, but, you know, just throwing that out there. Baldoni, for a time, he did actually stick to this marketing. There's actually, I think, if I can find it again, what we remember and what was really pushed to the public eye is that he shifted to this new narrative, which is telling the world what the movie was really about. And around this time, people were starting to notice that Baldoni was marketing the movie alone with all of his castmates together and, you know, everybody unfollowing him on social media. So the claim in this document is that this was a strategic move on his part to explain away this absence and this unfollowing. So it wasn't long after that it came out that Baldoni had hired a crisis PR team headed by specialist Melissa Nathan on recommendation from Baldoni's publicist Jennifer Abel. Nathan created a strategy, which I'll use her own words to describe said strategy as it does so perfectly, which is social manipulation. This, along with astroturfing, were methods that they used to inflate all the negative stories about Blake Lively across all media to bury the complaints on set. But not only that, the team would take an active role in publishing opinions, or in my terms, hit pieces against Lively to tarnish her image amongst the public. As I like to summarize this, Baldoni's team was the media's puppet masters, and they were pulling our little strings, making us dance like little idiots. And you know, I'm in there too, because let me tell you, I was Team Baldoni for the longest time. Now I'm gonna go ahead and go into text threads, which I think are pretty damn telling. The first group of text threads are between Miss Abel and Miss Nathan. So these are the ones that are honestly kind of closest to Baldoni, and are the ones who are literally hired to protect his image. So Abel and Nathan discuss Baldoni's wishes of burying Blake Lively. They go on to speak about being careful with how they write things down, as they don't want any documents to get into the wrong hands, which I think is very ironic. This isn't like too uncommon necessarily. I guess if you're lacking morals, it's not too uncommon. It's just the way that they're speaking. And I have a theory, which I'll get into in a little bit, just based on the way that they are speaking. This is an example of the team keeping up with their social manipulation tactics by shifting the narrative on Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds. Followed up with that, Nathan responded, "The majority of socials are so pro-Justin, and I don't even agree with half of them, LOL." All I'm gonna say is that this is coming from Baldoni's own team. So what does that say about the situation in him? Okay, so from Nathan, he doesn't realize how lucky he is right now. We need to press on him just how fucking lucky. Also from Nathan, the whispering in the ear, the sexual connotations like Jesus effing Christ, other members feeling uncomfortable watching it. I mean, there's just so much. I think it's very telling when his own team is saying, oh, he is lucking out right now. There's a lot of evidence against him, but let me tell you, he is just lucking out right now. That I think is very telling of him as a person, the whole situation. It talks about his character, in my opinion. And then here we'll see another text thread that kind of mentions some of the on-set behavior from Abel. Nothing about being unsafe, fat comments, sexual. This to me, along with the legal documents, kind of confirms the fact that something, at the very least, happened on set that revolves around, I don't know, sexual content, fat comments, things like that. Definitely, at the very least, harassment on set. And not just to Lively, that there are others who had witnessed this. This is from Nathan. Hey guys, re the TMZ thing, re the HR complaints. Our understanding is that 2 were from Blake and blank the sexy comments. In addition, 1 from blank, the thing with Jamie and her apartment in NYC. Just want to clarify. So I believe the blanks are probably protecting whoever else this is, you know, filed the complaint. And we can also see that Jamie is involved, who, remember, is Justin Baldoni's BFF and CEO of Wayfarer Studios. The PR and the publicist talking about this isn't like nefarious to say, like, it's their job and it's their duty to discuss these things. We're gonna get into text from Baldoni, which kind of shows his intent of shifting the narrative. Hey, just landed. What is the TikTok strategy? I would like you guys to start posting only talking about domestic violence and clips of why this movie is so important. Alone, this isn't necessarily a bad thing, right? If you want to market a movie a certain way, talking to your publicist about this is not like, oh, red flag, he's doing something wrong. That's not necessarily, but combined with everything else, it's kind of like, okay, well, it's a bit icky in my opinion. Why did I go British? I had no clue. Also, I need you guys to really be on all stories I'm tagged in. I think you should let all people DM me so you can see people's reactions to film and I can be reposting everything. Ding, 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 ding. Manipulation tactic right here. Again, on its own, it's not necessarily a bad thing. Remember, these people are all about public perception and keeping up their image. So when you're doing a movie as sensitive as It Ends With Us, that surround topics like DV and cycles of abuse, this type of thing, it's not necessarily nefarious. If you want to promote survivor stories, it could be a good thing, honestly. But combined with everything else that we're seeing, this is especially, to me, this is especially icky. It's just so manipulative, and especially because he's using survivors' stories to protect his own image, because he may or may not be an absolute creep. Hey guys, one thing I think I want to do is the Dr. Almond show. I don't know what that is. Matt, I know you have your feelings about it, but his practice saved my friend Miranda's life a few months ago. With everything going on, I want to have an offensive move showing my neurodivergence and some of the attributes that come with it so that I can start talking about it. Most anything that I have been accused of is social awkwardness and impulsive speech, and I think me sitting down with him and just looking at my brain and talking about some of these things will be helpful for me. This is his strategy of trying to explain away what he's been quote unquote accused of. He tries to explain this as being social awkwardness and neurodivergence, which, come on, my dude. It's just him sort of planting seeds again in public perception. It's a way to kind of humanize yourself. You get accused of doing something that's socially awkward, and the fact that you're neurodivergent, why not use it? I don't know if he actually is or not. I don't know if he actually is and is just using that as an excuse, or if he's just completely making that up and is trying to plant these seeds of having social awkward tendencies to try to explain away maybe some rash things he said one time, or because he said he maybe made a fat comment that came off the wrong way, but he didn't actually mean it because he's socially awkward. So next we'll go on to texts from Abel and Nathan showing the connections to media, like their own personal connections that they have to people within media to help manipulate the narrative, which I think this is probably the most, in my opinion, unethical thing that you can do. As a PR person, crisis management, as a journalist, Abel confirms the relationship with a writer who she has on standby, which definitely confirms that this specific writer slash journalist has bias. Confidentially, I'm out to dinner with a friend of 12 plus years who writes for People magazines, Fox News, In Touch, Us Weekly, and she is fully briefed on the situation and is armed and ready to take the story of Blake weaponizing feminism to any of her outlets the minute we give her the green light. She hates Blake, has heard this story before, and will do anything for us, just FYI. Even if there's some truth in this, that the fact that Blake does weaponize feminism, which is ironic because Baldoni does the same thing, but even if there's some truth in that, and honestly I can believe that, wouldn't be surprised. But she's already confirmed that the writer has bias. She hates Blake. Therefore, that makes whatever she writes about Blake unethical. This shows that Nathan's sister is actually a journalist, and she's written some things for the New York Post and Page 6. She mentions an article that Nathan's sister wrote on a subject in which she included that Baldoni made Blake uncomfortable, but that was all approved, I would assume, by Nathan. So I actually read the article, and it really doesn't dive into specifics. They don't try to bury the lead or anything. First, pretty much like the first paragraph, it's like, yeah, Blake Lively said she was uncomfortable on set because of Baldoni's actions, but they never dive into any of like the actual sexual harassment claims, anything like that. They throw in a bunch of red herrings of like, yeah, maybe like some sources close to Blake say she was made uncomfortable, and other sources say, you know, Baldoni, he never means anything by it. They go into detail about random things about like Baldoni and Blake. One random fact that they throw in there is like why he called Wayfarer Studios Wayfarer Studios, which ties back to his religion. And I'm like, why do we need to know that? So yeah, the article itself is just, it's a weird article. Another manipulation tactic. This to me is where Baldoni's team really takes it to an unprofessional level, and it really shows their mindset during this whole, like, in my opinion it's a smear campaign, but this is like their whole mindset during it. So I'll read this text thread. I'm having reckless thoughts of wanting to plant pieces this week of how horrible Blake is to work with, just to get ahead of it. She's putting us through hell. And Nathan responds, same. Am I already off the record spoke to the editor Daily Mail because she's my friend? Sometimes people's texts, I swear. But yeah, that just goes to show A, their connections again with people in media to help control the narrative, but also it shows B, their mindset during all of this. And my theory, they hate Blake Lively. Like, they're letting their emotions of Blake Lively drive them. In my opinion, this shows more than just protecting Baldoni's image, which is the job of a publicist and a PR management team. Technically speaking, that's not part of their job description, okay? Tearing somebody else down, because once you start doing that and start planting pieces, you start getting into territory of defamation. Ethically speaking, a lot of them stay away from planting false narratives and false pieces because they can get into legal trouble. Now, defamation is a very hard thing in the United States of America to actually win a case on. Now, I'm not a lawyer, I don't study law, not 100%, but it really, there's a lot in here where I'm like, girl could kind of, she could sue if she wanted to. So they really took it on their, like, on a personal level to start tearing down Blake Lively. So this text thread, page 41, paragraph 132, again, their social manipulation tactics at work here. All press is so overwhelmed. overwhelming. We've confused people. So much mixed messaging. It's actually really funny if you think about it. I just wanted to put that in there because I think it shows, again, their mindset and the fact that they're not great people. I mean, it's great. They're great people if you are in trouble and you need your image protected. They are fucking agents of chaos. They are a great team to have, I guess, if you want to confuse the media so badly and confuse your audience so badly. The narrative online is so freaking good and fans are still sticking up for Justin, and there's literally been no pickup for those 2 articles, and it's actually shocking to me. But I see this as a total success, as does Justin. You did such amazing work. Narrative is crazy good. So did you. So yeah, they're basically patting each other on the back, telling each other good job. But yeah, again, it goes to show, you know, their methods are fucking working. They buried the articles. They're doing great. That's kind of it with the text that I wanted to show. Again, there's more text messages that you can sort of see throughout the document. But I just really wanted to point out people's mindsets during all this. And it's kind of funny, like, they're shocked that their strategy worked so freaking well. I'll kind of get into why I think it worked so well. But yeah, so we'll go over a couple other things here. One of the biggest criticisms that Lively faced, and especially for me, okay, was when she bragged to the media about an important scene that Ryan Reynolds wrote. So keep in mind that this was in the middle of the WGA strikes. So whether or not he actually wrote the scene or if she was just inflating it, whatever she was trying to do, I don't know. It's still tone deaf at the very least around a time where poor writers are just trying to fight for basic rights. This, I think, is a perfect example of Blake Lively not being the perfect victim. The fact that she did have screw-ups during this promotional campaign, right? There's some things that this document can't explain away or can't forgive Blake Lively for. Trying to sell her own products in sync with promoting this movie. She said this. You know, she said, my great husband, he wrote one of the best scenes in the movie. This is a perfect example of Baldoni's team taking that narrative and just inflating it. I will say, Nathan's sister, she definitely helped contribute to this. I'll link an article, but she kind of helped push this narrative that they had people inside the media pushing this narrative. People already are annoyed at her, and you have the perfect ammo. People are already annoyed with her. You tie all this in, you can blow this up, you plant some pieces. Now you can manipulate people into feeling full-on hatred. Exhibit D, it shows the scenario planning that Nathan and her team had for Baldoni. There's nothing like super shocking about this document or illegal about this document. In fact, scenario planning is pretty standard for PR teams in times of crisis management, but this just goes to show the methods in which are employed when protecting public image. If Blake Lively has a PR team, which she does, they probably use something similar. I can't help but agree with Nathan and Abel throughout all this that Baldoni got so lucky. He's lucky that he had already a relatively good relationship with the public. He has been outspoken in the past about women's rights and dismantling the patriarchy and protecting women and praising survivors. He got lucky that the woman that he's battling against in the public eye already has bad moments and examples of being a mean girl and examples of being a Hollywood elitist that is very out of touch with reality. All of this together, they used it to their advantage. He's lucky that we leave no room for nuance and crave having two sides pitted against each other. There is something so archaic about current mass media consumption where we have to have a hero and we have to have a villain. It's like we're watching a Coliseum battle and we have to pit two parties against each other. One has to be the good side, one has to be the bad side. There is no room for nuance. Even now, with all of these documents public, people still defend Baldoni. Yes, this legal document was drafted by her team. Yes, there is bias in it. Yes, Blake Lively is out of touch. Has she done some things that can't be explained away by this document? Yes. However, there is some pretty damning evidence that at the very least, Baldoni is not the person he says he is. In my opinion, this shows that at the very least, he was abusive on set. This shows that he has done and said things that have violated HR policies and in a normal workplace would have gotten him fired. I find it so ironic that they started a movie centered around abusive relationships and the cycle of abuse. and here we are. It just disturbs me how deep Baldoni's PR team were able to dig their way into the public mind and public perception and just uproot any semblance of common sense within us and replace it all with drama and speculation and hatred and vitriol. Especially for me, like personally, I will admit to this, I am guilty of being allowed to be manipulated. It is a great lesson in how teams like this work, how public perception can be manipulated, how social media is just a fabrication. People behind social media, they show you what they want you to see. We often develop parasocial relationships with people that we watch on screen, and we need to remember that these are Hollywood actors and elites. They have teams of people behind them, hired specifically to protect their public image. We need to remember when things like this happen to just remain open-minded, to ask questions, to empathize, and try to understand all sides of the story. I will throw this out there real quick. Baldoni is also being sued by his ex-publicist, which does not help his case. Now, I haven't read the document yet. I would love to get my grubby little hands on it and sit down, drink some coffee, and read it. But I haven't read it yet. That one, she's actually suing him and calling for a jury trial, so that should be very interesting. Another update! According to a Deadline article, Baldoni is planning to release a countersuit. So once he does that, it's not out yet. Once he does that, fair is fair. I just said we gotta listen to all sides of the story. I would love to see his side of the story too. I would love to see what evidence he has, because I'm sure he's going to refute every single claim, and he is going to say that Blake Lively's PR team is doing exactly what he has been accused of doing. Once his comes out, I'll read through it and then maybe do an update video. That is going to be it for today's video. It is a long one, so if you enjoyed, please leave a like, subscribe, comment down below what your opinions are, what you think is the most damning evidence. What are your opinions on all of this? Do you feel, I just feel disappointed in myself, I think is the biggest thing. Come on, girl, what were you doing? What were you doing? I just got caught up in all the drama. It's pettiness. It's like reality TV. I think they really played to the fact that people love having petty drama, and it's really easy when you have somebody detestable and somebody very likable. It's so easy to shift that narrative. I don't know what was going on with Blake Lively's team, but they really weren't. I don't know, maybe she needs a new PR team. Like, I was thinking that, but I'm also thinking maybe they were not saying anything because they maybe are like actually looking to sue. It's not a like lawsuit or anything, but I think we might be heading in that direction. This is gonna be still something that's gonna be developing, and I will be keeping up on and updating. So yeah, I will see you guys on the next one. So goodbye, have a nice life, and don't allow yourself to be manipulated.